Welcome to Day Zero. Welcome back to another episode of Day Zero with FOUNDIT. And today we're joined with one of our newest partners and big appointment, which is Tracey Macmillan, who joins us with Andrew as a team, a super team in the Stonnington and Boroondara, specialising as a local market expert. Coming on as a shareholder and as a partner. Trace has had a wealth of experience, not just in property, but also in business in general, having started some other businesses, which we're going to get into in a minute. But Trace, before we do get into it, I just firstly wanted to say thank you. We feel incredibly privileged to have you on board, and thank you for making the decision and the leap to come and entrust us and go into business together.
Thanks, Angus. Well, I'm just as excited, and the last couple of months as I've been, slowly transitioning into, establishing my position with FOUNDIT and working with you guys, it's like it just gets more exciting looking at what the future.
It is, and it's been like an exciting journey, even as the last few months as you've joined. Like there's more people joining, there's a buzz around it, people are excited. We're doing something different and unique that the market really hasn't seen before, and so it's a really interesting combination of experience of people such as yourself, but also bringing technology and research into play. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Case, before we do get into your buyer agent journey and the FOUNDIT journey, give the listeners a little bit more of an understanding of your background. Where did you grow up? Let's start there.
Yeah, so I actually grew up in the western suburbs. My dad was a footballer for Footscray, as it was known then, and now known as the Western Bulldogs. And then when I was 18, my career path was that I wanted to be a nurse. That was something interesting when I was a teenager, 13, I had a very bad accident where I smashed up most of the bones in one of my legs and had some head injuries and ended up in hospital, in the Royal Children's Hospital, for a really long time.
Wow.
And basically missed a whole year of school. And so I was pretty inspired by the nurses that cared for me. And from that point on, I decided that was going to be what I wanted to do. That was my career pathway. And so I was fortunate to get into St Vincent's Hospital nursing program. Mm-hmm. So back in those days, there was some university nursing training, but still the majority of nursing training was done in hospitals, and you went and you lived in the hospital. That was kind of mandatory, at least for the first 12 months. You lived in what was known as a nurse's home. And there was 45 in my intake group, and there was 44 girls and one guy. And that's kind of what nursing was like back in those days. And you went and lived there, and you became part of the workforce after what was called pre-training school, 6 weeks. And you became part of the nursing workforce and had study blocks. And 3 years later, you graduated with a load of clinical experience. And I'm still really grateful for that training, because it was pretty powerful way to learn. And so after the first 12 months of living in the nurse's home, I then, moved out and shared houses with other members of my nursing group. And so that brought me out to the southeastern suburbs of Melbourne, Richmond, Prahran. And that's where I continued to have resided since then, right throughout the time that when I first met my husband, Andrew, who I'm working with, and I've raised my family in really mostly around South Yarra.
Yeah, beautiful. And moving out of nursing and into medical devices, can you give a little bit of background about your entrepreneurial journey of starting your own business and how that came about?
Yeah. So I was, during my 20s, I was nursing. I had done quite a bit of work in emergency department nursing, did some time in oncology, travelled overseas and worked in London for a little bit as well. And then I decided I wanted to try something different, and I kind of had this kind of like, I don't really know where my skill set is being fully fulfilled, and wanted to try. Lots of friends were in the corporate world, and is that something that I could do, but using my clinical skills? So I took up a role as an account manager with then a company called Medical Applications, which sold Siemens critical care devices, ventilators and monitors. And I spent a couple of years with them and then realised that I did have a clinical gap in my skill set, that I wasn't qualified in intensive care nursing, or critical care nursing. And so I decided to leave that role and go back to study. And did my intensive care majoring in cardiac critical care at the Epworth Hospital. And possibly because of my background, that I'd already worked in that sales account management role, I was approached by a company that was Hewlett-Packard, that had a really big installation of patient monitoring equipment at the Epworth, and asked if I would come on board to help set up a clinical education program they wanted to make really part of their workforce, as well as to complement their sales team. So I was working part-time with them, part-time clinical still in intensive care at the Epworth. And during that period, their major distributor that Hewlett-Packard had in Victoria and Tasmania was bought out by their major competitor, which was GE at the time. So the head of channels came to me and said, look, we've got this gap. We urgently need to fill it. Hey, would you like to start your own business and take over this portfolio of products? At that time, I think I had a 12-month-old and a 2-year-old at home. Yeah. And I went home and told Andrew and said, they want me to start my own business. And as if, what experience do I have? And his first response was, well, do they want any money for the business? And I said, oh, no, I don't know. There's no money for the. And he said, well, obviously, you've got to give it a go.
Yep.
So that's what happened. And that was the beginning of Medimac. It started off with just myself, and I had my sister working for me doing some of the administrative work, and then I built out a team with other salespeople and clinical specialists along the journey. But when the business started was probably about 2 years before what was known then as Y2K. And I think we talked about this a bit earlier, is that not everybody of younger generations remembers what Y2K was, but Y2K was when the year 2000, any electronic device, computerized device at the time that had a time and date on it, there was no guarantee that it would actually click over to the year 2000. And so if it couldn't be tested and validated, particularly in high-risk environments like medical technology in a hospital, if it couldn't be validated, the government and private hospitals as well had to just literally put aside the money to replace everything that had. In fact, it was the devices that were older, that didn't have a time and date, that actually survived, but anything that was more the current newer equipment that had the time and date needed to be replaced. And so it was a pretty good kickstart to my journey, and that continued on for over 20 years. Yep.
So, Tracy, I think transitioning from coming out of Medicare, but also coming out of a high-intensive environment, being in an emergency ward, how has that shaped the way that you've approached real estate? And in a bit of context for that, as how I think about it is, real estate's a high-pressure environment. Mm-hmm. It's often time-sensitive. You're dealing with large sums of people's money. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to assume that it's a little bit more low-pressure for you, given your background as well.
Yeah, well, everything's relative, isn't it? So what I would have considered a high-pressure environment before making critical decisions that may or may not involve someone's life, contextually, understanding that buying a property is the biggest decision financially that someone will make in their lifetime. Bringing to the table, having worked in very high-pressure environments, whether it was in my clinical practice or in my business, working on multi-million-dollar tenders that are coming down to the wire, coming to real estate, I can bring to my clients that sense of calm, but also the confidence that we are making a decision that is not only one of the biggest decisions that they might make financially in their lifetime, but they are supported in that decision by someone who they can confidently guide them and use not just their own relationships and intuition, but use data that's available to actually support that decision.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point, what I've noticed about you, and it's a really strong powerhouse between you and Andrew, and complementary skill sets that you have. You're very data-driven. You've got a high care factor that you follow through with your clients, is the way that obviously comes through from your nursing days, I would assume, as well.
That's interesting you say that, Gus, because when people ask me what I like most about working as a buyer's advocate, it's probably the first thing it's not the property. Yeah. It's the people.
Yep.
And I think I really get so excited about going on that journey from the first time that I meet someone and really get to understand what their brief is. And I will build out a brief based on asking questions first about how someone lives, and I mean, unless it's something like an investor. But if it's a family home, a first home buyer, an upsizer, a downsizer, so many of the questions I will have for my clients or potential clients will be, what's a day look like for you?
Yeah.
How, what are your family plans? How old are the kids? Yeah. Where are they going to school, or are they living nearby? Are there grandchildren on the way?
Yeah.
You haven't got a dog, but are you planning to get one?
Yeah.
So there's so many things, and I just, as I go on that journey with my clients, it's finding out more about them, and really, it's not just about the property. I really think it probably comes from also how I like to live my life, and I bring that to the table. Yeah. Because really central to me is family and community and having a sense of purpose and giving back. And so I incorporate that into helping me understand how other people want to live. And then when we understand how they want to live, then we go look for the property. Yeah. Then we start to use the data, and then we look at what, particularly in the environment at the moment, if it's like, prices are, they've dropped, Melbourne's, probably going to drop 10% this year. But it's finding also that the quality, it's not always a great quality product. And does it suit your lifestyle? It might be cheap, but are you going to move in 6 months' time? Well, you can't make those decisions anymore or change your mind in 6 months' time or 12 months' time. So
it's such an interesting point, which we were talking about earlier out there, is, if you were to just give a form to a person, say, fill this in and tell me what you want to buy. Yeah. You don't end up, it doesn't match. Like so often we see someone comes to us and say, I want to buy in Paran. Okay, well, what's important to you? Yeah. Oh, well, we've got an emerging family, we're about to have our third kid, we've got a dog. Okay, well, do you need a backyard? Yeah. Well, actually, do you know what the average box size is in Paran? Have you thought about these things? And so I think, to your point, and one of your superpowers is the ability to be patient, to have advisory, and to work through understanding who they are before you get into the transactional component of the conversation as well. Yeah. To that point, I'm curious to hear your answer on this is, what do you think the superpower is that bringing you Andrew's background and your background together as a team is?
I think the superpower is that Andrew knows real estate. 45 years, I can't match that. Yeah. So even though we've been married 35 years now, and during that time we have owned a lot of properties. In fact, most people will say we've paid, the government way too much money over 35 years by transacting so often. But Andrew can just walk down the street, and he knows the properties, he knows the areas, he knows the history, he you can end up on a whole conversation about who built that apartment block and, who's lived there over the years. But you can't replace that kind of knowledge, that just having been in the industry and also the relationships that Andrew's developed over that period of time. And I think that when I decided to become a buyer's advocate, there's no way I could have upskilled so quickly if I didn't have Andrew there by my side. I wasn't working with Andrew, but I could, he was always there in the lounge room or at the end of the phone, what should I do? What would you do? Just that general advice. So I think Andrew has, incredible knowledge about property. And I think that what I can bring to it is probably two things is, I think Andrew has this as well, but my real love of, really wanting to help people and help them fulfill their dream, whatever that might be. And also I'm much more focused on technology and using technology to provide me with data to help make informed decisions. And that was one of the things when I first left my old business and moved into real estate. Well, one of the things I was really missing was that technology piece.
Yep. Yeah. I think a great example of that is, Andrew, as an example, with the new lease that we'll hopefully secure, that thing's not coming to market for another 12 months, but through relationships, you and him have got access to it.
Yes.
You know about it because you live and breathe the area.
Yep.
You know the community. You serve back to the community, which we'll get to in a second around some of the charities that you're involved in. It's a big part of your purpose as well. And then you provide that nurture component, the analytical component, the process that sits in behind it to make sure that, are we following the correct process? Do we thoroughly understand what we're getting the client into? I think that point at the beginning is so interesting around, taking the time and genuinely wanting to help people as you do to make sure they get the outcome that they're after. And often, how many times do you have a client come to you, says they want one thing, but they end up getting another as well?
So often, if I look back over, the last few years, the number of clients that have come to me with a brief and this is the only suburb, Tracy, that we're going to buy in, or only these two suburbs, and literally it's been somewhere completely, probably not completely different, but certainly wasn't in their original brief.
Yeah, that's great. And then moving on into the last part, which is obviously we met each other a few months ago. You and Andrew had a plan originally that you've been working on for a little while about transitioning as Andrew left Jealous Craig and had a long tenure there and a very successful career. And you were making the decision to form something, and we actually crossed paths and got to come together, and we loved you guys. We loved how much experience you've got, the team that you've got that's quite dynamic and quite different. I think is a real superpower to both of you for anyone who takes a mandate up with you guys. Not only that you know the area, but as everything was spoken about before. But what attracted you to the FOUNDIT brand, and what are you most excited about that by extension your clients are going to be getting in addition to everything we've just spoken about?
Yeah, I think that it was the timing. Sometimes, the old saying, things are meant to be.
Yeah.
And Andrew and I were just on the cusp of, it was something that Andrew really wanted to do before he saw out his career completely, that he's always looking to, both of us are looking for, what's the next thing that's going to really challenge me and maintain that sense of purpose going forward in your life. And so we thought, well, we could come together and, have Macmillan Property or do something, the two of us together. After 35 years of marriage, I think we've tested all the challenges along the way, and we've survived them all. So we were pretty confident that we could survive going into business together. Yeah. And then it was coincidence we got introduced to you guys and that we met, and really it has made this whole decision for both of us to go into property together like such a much more amazing experience, to be part of team and to be part of a company that is, what I've really not noticed is, the culture and the enthusiasm and what you guys are building behind the scenes to support us with the technology, with the research, with everything. That nothing is too hard, and the horizon just keeps getting further and further.
Yeah.
That what is possible, and I think also it just didn't make sense. Like, why would we want to do this alone when we could be part of something that's just like will bring so much more to what we can offer our clients and we could just do on our own.
100%. And I think the inverse of that is we're really fortunate is that exactly to your point is that, yes, we bring technology, yes, we bring research, and yes, we bring an operations arm to have a huge amount of backup and your clients do by extension. But there is so much that you can't get out of a spreadsheet or out of a database that you both bring from a relationships perspective. Even simple things like knowing the area, knowing certain things that are happening within your community. Those things you actually find out where about transactions 12 months before they're actually going to happen.
Yes.
As well, that give you a real edge over the competition. As well.
Yeah.
And just to touch on one other thing is that we're fortunate that you've also put your hand up to help lead the charge from a charity and events perspective within our business. But I thought I'd give you the opportunity to talk about, I know this is an important thing for you and a purpose as a part of your overall holistic life, something you want to make sure that you're ticking the box on.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about outside of work, what you devote your time to?
Yeah. So both Andrew and I have been involved with charities for a very long time. My original involvement came out of probably a little bit of a very big life-changing moment for us as a family, for Andrew and I, when our eldest, Hamish, was diagnosed with epilepsy at the age of 13. And that was part of my way of coping with that was in order to gain some control over the situation. I felt like I had to be doing. I had to do something. Like, I couldn't fix it, but I needed to do something. And so at that time I became involved with the Epilepsy Foundation, and I've had various roles with them over the years, and Andrew's still on the board with the Epilepsy Foundation, and we've done lots of fundraising for them and PR and the whole family has been involved. And during that time, only now not even quite 3 years ago, our daughter Alice was also diagnosed with genetic generalised epilepsy, and so that was something else that completely rocked our family and has probably driven us even further into, putting our time and effort into, research and supporting the Epilepsy Foundation into maybe eventually finding a cure for epilepsy. And Andrew has also been involved he's been on the foundation board for Very Special Kids, and there's a lot of synergy between the two charities because many of Very Special Kids clients also have epilepsy as a comorbidity. So that's really been a big part of our lives and also part of our goals in our life journey is to be giving back. And it gives a great sense of satisfaction and feeds into a sense of purpose as well to be working with charities.
I think, Trace, it's a really interesting point and speaks a lot to Andrew and you in terms of who you are as people. A lot of people would shy or kind of detract in a situation like that, but instead you guys are like, how do we get involved? How do we form a better future for not just our children but for everyone as well? And I know we're really fortunate now by meeting some of the people that you guys work alongside, Very Special Kids as an example, that we're now getting involved with. It's the help of you and the leadership that you're putting in behind it as well. And I think that that's a really interesting point. I think that the last thing I wanted to talk about with you is the areas that you serve, that you're passionate about and that you're buying property in, it's kind of across 4 key regions being Yarra, Stonnington, Boroondara and the Mornington Peninsula. The areas that you live and reside in and have a community around.
Yes.
Why are you passionate about it to start?
Because it's our life. It's where we live. It's where our family lives. We're in South Yarra. We spend our time between South Yarra and the Mornington Peninsula. Our daughter and her fiance, they're in Armidale. Our son and his wife are in Melbourne. And it's what we live every day. So when we have clients come to us and they're looking to buy a property, we know it, we're living it. It just comes naturally.
So Trace, where could we find you having a coffee on a Saturday?
Yeah, coffee on a Saturday, probably after we've been to the gym at the Commons, and then head over to Ned's, grab a coffee, and then it's off to work on a few opens for inspections, and probably then head down to the peninsula for the rest of the weekend. And yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Trace, firstly, thank you. First of many podcasts that we'll have you on for, talking about the areas that you're passionate about and some of the other things that you're up to at FOUNDIT. But again, thank you, and we're so happy to have you on board.
Thank you, Angus. We're really, both Andrew and I are just so excited about this incredible journey that we've been able to become a part of, and I can't wait to see what the next 3, 6, 12 months brings.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Thank you.